Today I was going to share the study of the chronology, the redemptive historical chronology, once again, and perhaps in more detail. 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 1, right? 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 1. Shall we read it together? 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 1. Are we ready? Begin. Now it came about in the 480th year after the sons of Israel came out of the land of Egypt, in the fourth year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, which is the second month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. Yes. Right. So I think on Sunday, I'm sure that you mostly understood, but the atmosphere and the response on Sunday wasn't that good. So I assume that we need to teach once again, right? We need to teach several times. So let's go over the general ways of calculating period or times, right? So general ways. Even in our society, right? Even among us, there are actually many ways to calculate the times or days or years and period, right? First is, for example, of anniversary, right? Let's use the wedding anniversary, right? Year 2018, you got married. You had a wedding on year 2018. When is your, or let me ask you this way. 2019, right? How do you call? Is it first anniversary? Is it second anniversary? First anniversary, isn't it? Am I right? And then 2020, right, is the second anniversary. So we got this way to calculate anniversary. Yeah, the anniversary, when we calculate this way, somehow the first year is called the year of wedding, right? Year of wedding. And then the second year would be first anniversary. Or I think it's more like that when you pass 365 days, right? There was a date of a wedding, and when you come to the year after date of wedding, then we call it first anniversary. So we are celebrating that we safely lived and ended, right, the previous year with a marriage, right? So the anniversary. I mean, you don't have to follow me, but anniversary in that sense, I realize it's not to celebrate the year to come, but it's to celebrate the years past, isn't it? When we say 7th anniversary, it means we just finished 7 years, right? So it's more like that we are celebrating that there was no big deal in the last in the time past. That sounds to me as a region of we are celebrating anniversary. So anyway, there is an anniversary way that we calculate the first year as a year of wedding, right? And this is more like, as I said, age reckoning method, right? Reckoning method. Similar to that, right? It's not just when the year change, when the calendar change, that we change the anniversary, right? For example, if the wedding was 1st July, right? And when it becomes January 1st, do you call it first anniversary? No, it has to be the first July once again, right? 1st July of next year, then we call it first anniversary, right? So it's like an age reckoning method, right? It has to be the 1 full year has to be passed. 1 full year has to be passed. So when we calculate age, it's the same, right? When we were born in the July 1st of 2019, that baby will be 1 year old when it becomes 1st July of year 2020, right? Until that, somehow we count that 0 age, right? The baby is 0 age. Maybe we can say 6 month old, 8 month old, right? But when it comes to year, we say 0 year, right? 0 age. So anniversary way should be age reckoning method, right? Secondly, we got for like the period of trip, right? Trip period, right? So you go for a trip on Monday, right? You go for a trip on Monday. Then you come back on Thursday. So how many days have you traveled? If you go on Monday business trip and come back on Thursday, how many days have you traveled? Do you travel? 4 days, right? We say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we call 4 days, right? So in this way, it's strange, right? It's different from anniversary way, right? We call it, doesn't matter what time we are flying, right? What time we are flying. It's just Monday is counted as 1 day, right? And then the last day also counted as the last day. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? So if we trip from Monday to Thursday, it is counted as 4 days, right? So it's this trip period, we can call it as a inclusive reckoning method, right? Inclusive reckoning method. Right? Inclusive reckoning method. So even in our life, we are using different ways to calculate period. That's what I'm trying to say. Right? It's not weird. It's not unusual. We are using all different kind of ways of calculating things, and we expect the same sort of ways of calculating period of days and years in the Bible as well, right? It's not weird. We just didn't know. We just didn't know that. Nobody told us before. But now we are getting to know it, right? So there are these different ways of calculating things, and there are exceptional way. I found it a bit exceptional, which is, for example, wedding and honeymoon together, right? Wedding and honeymoon together. I mean, I've been thinking about the honeymoon, this example today. So, for example, today is Wednesday, right? So today you got wedding. Well, it depends on actually the culture. So tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, do you call it as a first day of your honeymoon or a second day of your honeymoon? You just got married, right? You just got wedding today, and you went off a honeymoon tonight, right? Normally, you went off. You go off for honeymoon tonight. And tomorrow, right? Thursday. Do you call it as a first day of honeymoon or as a second day of honeymoon? How do you call it? There is no right answer, right? I'm just asking how would you say it's the first day when you meet around the people there, and the people ask how come you come to Bali and or Langkawi, and you say, oh, we just got married, we came for honeymoon, and they say, oh, so today is my first day of honeymoon, or today is my second day of honeymoon. How would you say? It seems to me that I will say it's the first day of honeymoon, isn't it? I mean, I don't know about how you would say, but for me, if someone asks me, then I will calculate wedding day as separate, although the honeymoon started from that day, right? Trips started from that day. I would say the Thursday would be my first day of honeymoon. So there is a little bit strange, awkward way that we are calculating these days as well. When we have a big event, we leave that day, right, as a day of wedding. Then the trip, which is a minor event, we calculate from next day somehow. Isn't it? I mean, I don't know. For me, it seems very weird. And I think I wouldn't say this is my second day of honeymoon. On the first morning, I just woke up from in a hotel and meet people and say, "Oh, this is my second day." I would say it's my first day. So there are ways, different ways of calculating things, right? Also, if there is another weird things that there is a grandfather. Then your father, then you, then your son. Right? So we all know how to calculate the generation, right? So your father and you have a one generation gap, right? One generation. And the grandfathers and father also one generation. And you and your son is one generation, right? So that means from your father to your son, there are two generation gap, right? And grandfathers to your son, there are three generation gap, right? Very easy. But when you have your boy, when you have your son, when you have your daughter, will you say he is my first generation or he is my second generation? We don't use that expression a lot, but if we say that, will that boy, will your son and daughter be your first generation of offspring or second generation offspring? Well, in that sense, we or I became first generation, isn't it? Then my son becomes second generation. I mean, somehow I have to be counted as the first, so that my son will be counted as a second. When we study about the wilderness journey, we always say the first generation who came out from Egypt all died, and second generation all went into the land of Canaan, right? Well, but do you understand, right? So there are a bit strange way to calculating things, right? And it works for not only Oriental or Asian people, but it works for Western people as well. So I'm just telling you that it's not weird. It's not weird, and that we are finding these kind of ways of calculation from the Bible as well, because we are using it, right? In our daily lives, we are using these ways of calculating things, so we can find these from the Bible as well. So second is 480th year, from the Exodus, right? So previously we were the teachers and the lecturer emphasized a lot about inclusive reckoning method, right? Inclusive reckoning method. And we were almost told that in the Bible there is only one way to calculate the period, that is the inclusive reckoning method, right? Look at Jesus Christ. He died he was buried on Friday. He died on Friday, and he rose on Sunday morning. So the time wise is even less than 30 hours, right? Or maybe 36 or 48 hours, right? Yet it is called 3 days, right? 3 days. So we emphasize a lot about the Bible is using inclusive reckoning method. However, now we realize that Bible doesn't only use inclusive reckoning method, but Bible uses all different kinds of reckoning method as well. Right? So 480th year from the Exodus. As we know, this is the Solomon's 4th year, right? So I will not calculate it. I'm sure that you all know. Solomon's 4th year is 966 BC, right? 966 BC. And because he said, well, luckily that English Bible says 480th year, right? But Korean Bible says 480 years only, 480 years. So it's quite confusing. And when I look at the Hebrew, it is even more confusing, because the Hebrew, maybe the grammar expert can differentiate, but Hebrew, there is no th. according to Hebrew, we cannot tell whether it's a 480th or a 480. It's difficult to tell because the same way of using the same Hebrew word would be used for 480 years and 480th years, right? So anyway, because it says 480 years or 480th years, we go back 480 years and then come up with 1446 BC, right? Which is the year of Exodus. However, in between 966 to 1446, there are 481 years. Let me show you. Right? Let's say there is a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So from 10 years to 20 years, right? There is 1 year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So from 0 to 0, there are 11 years. So from 966 to 1446, there are 481 years, right? There are 481 years. So the issue is, how are we going to resolve this 1 year difference, right? How are we going to resolve 1 year difference, or why the Bible says it's the 480th year only, right? As I said on Sunday, right? The reason is it's the same author in the same verse, right? If you remember when we learn about the king's regnal year, right? Depends on the who is becoming king. So depends on the subject, right? Depends on the subject. The historian, right? They recalculate everything according to the subject's the system, right? Although the northern Israel were using non-accession year dating method, right? But if our king, right, if King Solomon, if King Rehoboam is becoming king, then because of the subject, according to the subject, they recalculate everything, right, and write according to it, right? So that is a kind of pattern, and that is kind of the custom of this historian or the author who wrote these years in the Bible, especially in the book of Chronicles, right? Book of Chronicles. So because King Solomon is the main character here, King Solomon is the subject here, right? King Solomon's 4th year is the main standard here, right? Which is that it used the accession year dating method. Accession year dating method. So the first year for, 970, right? 970, 969, 968, 967, 966. The first year when Solomon became king was considered as a year, I would not say year of accession, I would just say year of becoming king, right? Year of becoming king. The reason, year of becoming king. Just like the what we saw. Similar to what? Similar to what? Similar to wedding, right? The first year is considered as a year of wedding, and then the second year should be considered as the first anniversary, right? So in the same way, the accession year dating method, according to it, the 970 would be would be considered as a year of becoming king, which is accession, and then first year, second year, third year, fourth year, right? And because this author is writing according to this King Solomon's way of calculating, right? So this 480 years also recalculated according to this kind of structure. I wouldn't say accession year dating method because this 480 years is not about king's regnal year, right? But similarly, right? Let's say 1446 BC, right? 1445, 1444, 1443, 1442, right? The 1446 BC is counted as the year of Exodus, right? Year of departing from Egypt, right? Then 1445 is counted as the first, second, and third, and fourth, right? The same structure is applied to calculate the length, this period as well. Because, I mean, think about it. This is one person, right? The same person writing the same, indicating these two different times. And if he uses one for according to the formula A, and then the second part according to formula B, then the reader cannot understand, right? Unless he said, I calculate the first part according to formula A, and the second part according to formula B, right? For us, for the reader, there is no way that we can understand what kind of formula or the system calculation that he used, right? So, imagine that you are the author of the book of Chronicle, and you want to let the reader know about it later on, right? Not only your descendants, but way behind, right? Like 1,000 years later, 2,000 years later, right? Then you have to set a principle. You have set the standard, right? That is, I believe, is to converting everything into one system, one formula, one calculating system. So he recalculate this 408 years according to King's regnal year, Solomon's King's regnal year, I believe. That's why he said it's the 480th year, right? Although there are 481 years, but according to this calculation, 966 becomes 480th year from the Exodus, right? Right. Do you understand so far? Yeah. I mean, it's not too difficult, right? Although it's difficult to find the evidences from the Bible, right? Similar evidences from the Bible, that it will be our second step, right? So for the first step, let's just understand different calculation is used, right? Right. So being number 3 is Israel 430 years of slavery, right? 430 years staying in Egypt, right? Staying in Egypt. Right. We got 1446 BC from this 1 King chapter 6 verse 1, right? And then from there, we are using Exodus chapter 12 verse 40 to 41, right? And said the entire time that the Israel stayed in Egypt was 430 years. So 1446 BC, and we go back 430 years, and we come up with 1876 BC, right? That is the year that Jacob migrated into Egypt, right? However, in the same way, between 1446 BC, 1876 BC, there are 431 years, right? 431 years. We calculated before, right? So I'm sure that we know, right? There are 431 years. And why the Bible says then, this time, 430 years only, right? So how are we going to resolve this 1 year difference, 1 year gap issue, right? Here, shall we read it together? Can anyone read it for us? Exodus chapter 12, verse 40 and 41, please.
They should have been in Egypt for 430 years, exactly 430 years for the gospel left Egypt colonized people.
Amen. It says in the verse 40, it says they stayed 430 years. But then verse 41 says, when the 430 years are fully, right, finished, fully fulfilled, then they came out, right? Let me look at it. Verse 41.
And at the end of 430 years to the very
thank you.
All the hosts of the Lord went up from the land of Egypt.
Thank you. Yeah, at the end of At the end of the 430 years, right? At the end of this at the end is Hebrew word ketz. Ketz. We saw it before, right? Ketz. This is at the end. And this means full, right? The full 430 years has finished, has completed. So at the end, firstly, it says, the Bible says 430 years they stay there, right? But then immediately the Bible added additional information that at the end they fully complete the 430 years, right? So these 430 years has to be understood as full years, right? Full years, not just as, in the way that this, right? We learned it here, like age reckoning method, right? The full year, right? So for example, that means that 430 years are finished, right? The 12 months of 430 years are completed, right? Not just roughly, right? Not just inclusively, but exactly that 12 months of a year, right? 430 times are repeated, right? 12 months of 400 years are completed. 430 years. This means the full year is finished. Full year is completed. So whenever the ketz, Hebrew word ketz, appeared in the Bible, that numbers and that years and that days should be understood as the full year, full time, not as an inclusive reckoning method, right? But age reckoning method. It should be a full, right? So what it means that the 430 years is a full year, right? It means, let me give you an example. We start from 1876, right? 1875, right? 1874, 1873, right? So this is the year that migrated. So this is the year migrated to Egypt. We don't know when they migrated, but let's say they are migrated around about January. Oh no, sorry, not January, but first month, right? Or the second month, early of the 1876 BC, right? Then full year means from here. Let's say this is the second month. Then, when it becomes the second month of 1875 BC, that is considered one full year, right? One full year. Same, when it goes to second month, once again, it will be considered a second full year, right? And then it goes to here, third full year. So as you can see, one full year, unless it started from the January 1st or the first day of the first month, right? Normally, the first one full year related to both years, 2 years, right? 1876 and 1875. Unless miraculously that something happened from the January 1st or the first day of the first month and it finished at the last day of the last month, right? Normally, this one full year relates to 2 years, right? Relates to 2 years. 2012, when was it? 2012, 8th of July, wasn't it? Or 12th of July, 8th of or 12th. The July was the TLCC opening service, right? TLCC opening service. So only when it becomes 2013, June, right, or July, right, then we say, we just complete the first full year, right? So 2012, 2013 are both involved and related, right? So in the same way, Yes, in between 1862 and 1446, there are 431 years. However, when it's counted as a full years, there are only 430 full years, right? There are only 430 full years. Do you understand? Do you understand? Because it relates to both, right? It relates to both. So yes, there are 431 years between 1876 and 1446. Yet when we calculate as a full year, there are only possibly, yes, there could be 431 full year if they started journey from 1st January or the first day of the first month, and they finished at the last day of the last month of the year, right? However, that isn't the case for Exodus, right? What was the date of the Exodus? They came out from Egypt on the 15th day of Nisan, right? 15th day of Nisan, which means it's not last day of the last month, right? So when they migrate into Egypt, went into Egypt. So from here, if we calculate 434 years, right, it should be 16th of Nisan. Am I right? I mean, do you understand? Let me go back. Sorry. Well, anyway, because the date that they came out from Egypt was on the last day of the last month, right? So this 4 years calculation is related to both 2 years, right? So yes, there are 431 years, but there are only 430 full years, right? Full years. So from here, we can understand, we can estimate the date when Jacob migrate into Egypt. The date of Exodus, as you know, right? Oops, date of Exodus. This part I didn't explain on Sunday because I thought it was too much headaches. So Exodus, as you know, is the 15th day of Nisan in 1446 BC, right? So if we go back 484 years, right, then it would become 16th of Nisan 1876 BC, right? 16th of Nisan 1876 BC will be the first day of these 484 years, right? However, there is another thing, right? There is another thing. For example, let's say today, your birthday is 1st February, right? Yeah, let's say your birthday is 1st February. So year 2020, you just turn over to 40, right? 40 years old. But after today is what? Today is what? Today is 12. Thank you. 12 of February, right? 12 of February. So you lived another 10 days, right? You lived another 10 days. But when you ask how old are you, you just said 40 years old, right? You don't say that 41 years old because of the extra 10 days, right? And we don't normally say I just lived 40 years and 10 days, right? So that 40 years remain until we become 41 years old, right? So when we calculate this age reckoning method or full reckoning method, that year remain until we complete another year, right? So 484 years, right? That stays until are you following me? But anyway, what I'm saying is, unless there is another extra 12 months, right, the year doesn't change, right? 480 years, let me explain this way. 480 full years covers from 480 years, 1 day plus 1 day, until 480 years plus 364 days. Do you understand? In this way, it's easier, right? You understand, right? So unless it becomes another, if there is another 12 full month, that the year doesn't change. So 480 full years means from here to here, right? From here to here. So the earliest time that we can say about the 480 years, 400 full 80 years is 16th of Nisan of 1876. 16th of Nisan, 1876. So there are about, if it happened, first day of Nisan, 1876, right? 1876. It is also counted as 480 years, right? 480 years. Right? So we can say that the Jacob's migration happened in between first day of Nisan until 16th day of Nisan in 1876. Why it cannot go further? Because we cannot change the year, right? 1876 should be remain as it is, right? So we can say first Nisan to 16th of Nisan. That would be the period that Jacob migrated to Egypt. Is there any evidence that we can say so? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Genesis 45, verse 6. Genesis chapter 45, verse 6. Can anyone read it for us?
Well, famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are still 5 days in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting.
But the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting, right? So how many famine, the years of famine, were there totally? 7, right? Okay, I will draw this once again. I mean this. Joseph became prime minister when he was 30 years old, right? So Joseph, 30 years old, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, right? So those 30 years old that he became prime minister, right? Then when he was 31 years old, what happened? That was the first year of plenty, right? Can you see it? First year of plenty, second year of plenty, third year of plenty, fourth year of plenty, fifth year of plenty, and sixth year of plenty, and seventh year of plenty, right? Then after the 7 years, what happened? Famine came, the year of famine, right? So first year of famine, second year of famine, and third year of famine. Right. Let's think about you're a Jacob now, right? You didn't know that there were 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, right? So during the 7 years that you of course reserve some, right? And you harvest a lot, right? When the first year of famine came, right? Do they suffer or not? Did they suffer or not? They don't, right? They don't suffer. Why? Because normally, whatever they harvest last year, that is the food for the next year. So the first famine, right? Jacob didn't suffer, right? I mean, they suffer, but they didn't suffer that much, right? Because they had this food in their storage, right? But then when it becomes the second famine, which is when Joseph was 39 years old, what happened? They may have some still left in their storage because of the 7 years of plenty, but Jacob clearly didn't know that there would be 7 years of famine, so Jacob did not save a lot, reserve a lot, right? So the second year they suffer, right? There's not enough food, right? Maybe for the beginning it was okay, but because there was none harvested on the last year, so they started suffering, right? And then when it becomes the third year, right? Third year, it says the second year of famine is finished, right? And there are 5 more years. 5 more years. Let me show you this. So 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. 자, look at this. So when the first year of famine came, this is 7 years left, right? 7 years left. 6 years left. 5 years left. 4 years left. 3 years left. 2 years left. And 1 year left, right? 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So the Bible says the 2 years of famine has just finished, and it is coming to there are still 5 years to come. 5 years to come. So when Genesis chapter 45 verse 6 was spoken, is about here, isn't it? The second year of famine is finished, and then the third year of famine has not started yet, right? Do you understand? Second year of famine is finished, and the third year has not finished. Has not started yet. The name of the first month is Nisan, isn't it? In Hebrew, Nisan. Why? What does it mean, Nisan? Oops. Nisan. Or equal Abib. Is it Abib or Abib? Abib. It means ear of the barley. Ear of the barley. Which means it's the time the barley should be ripe. It's the time that you have to see. You will see barley on the field. Right? It's the time the barley is ready for harvest. Right? So Jacob, right? For the first famine, year of the first famine, that he didn't suffer much, right? But then second year, he suffered a lot, right? And then he waited for another year. The month of Nisan came. The month of Nisan is the early harvest, the barley harvest, right? And he went out to the field and see no barley at all, right? No barley at all. And realized, this year is going to be also the year of the famine, right? And we cannot survive, right? Because we got nothing. We consume everything for the first famine, right? Year of the famine. And then whatever left over, we consume everything on the second year, right? And as you can see, as you saw, as you know the story, that the brothers of Joseph came to Joseph to buy some grains, right? So you can see that during the second year of famine, the Jacob's family did not have enough to survive, right? And then third year, the month of Nisan came, Aviv came. It should be the time that the barley should be on the field, and they saw nothing on the field and realized, no, we cannot survive. And that's why on the month of Nisan, they migrate to Egypt. They decide to, let's move, otherwise we cannot survive. That is the reason why we can say, the month of Nisan would be the date, would be the time that Jacob decided and migrate to Egypt. Yes, it could be any month, but according to this Exodus chapter 12, verse 40 to 41, right? Calculating from the 15th day of Nisan, the date of Exodus, calculate back the entire full 430 years, right? And then we rethink about the story of Jacob, right? We can say it is most likely correct to think that it was the month of Nisan, maybe very early part of month of Nisan, that Jacob decided to migrate to Egypt, because he saw nothing on the field, which means he will not gather anything during the main harvest as well, the meal harvest as well, right? So for that reason, we can say, we can roughly pinpoint, right? Roughly pinpoint that the date of Jacob's migration would be around 1st Nisan to about 16th Nisan, right? It happened around that time. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And seeing that, right? Bible is not does not have an error, right? Although it is written a bit difficult for us to understand, but when we understand it, right, the more story, the more truth can come out from the Bible, right? I never thought through Exodus chapter 12, verse 40 to 41, we could calculate the date of the migration to Egypt. But apparently, when we understood one part, then another part was open to us. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, let's consistently study the Bible. And if God is opening, right, although it sounds difficult to us, right, if God is opening this new topic and new teaching to us, I think it is better for us to learn, right? If we delay, it will be even harder for us to learn later. So when God opens these new topics, new teachings to us, let's give our ears and let's learn from Him so that we may be able to understand deeper and more about the Bible. Amen.